following the deplatforming of people like Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene from most social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you saw right-wing media get a massive surge in users. A lot of right-wingers are like, okay, I'm going to sign up for Gab, I'm going to sign up for Parler, I'm going to sign up for Telegram, I'm going to sign up for all this stuff. So, all these different sites, Rumble, Getter, all of them really grew since right-wingers went to these free speech sites, right? Now, it's kind of funny because, when you call them free speech, because they're actually not. Getter banned white nationalist Nick Fuentes. They just banned him. And by the way, Trump's Truth Social, as I pointed out before, would ban people for talking bad about Truth Social. Frank Speech banned people for swearing. And so it's really hilarious that they call themselves free speech, right? I'm for free speech, except for that and that. Oh, also, if you bug people who make the site on Getter, not on Getter, but on Truth Social, you can also get banned. Turns out they have all these rules. Weird. But anyway, nonetheless, they had this big gain of right-wingers. And since then, how have they been doing? Well, it turns out that after that initial surge, they stopped growing. In fact, they're not doing well at all. According to a new Washington Post analysis, conservative personalities on those sites are preaching to a very small group of hardliners. And the ones still using Facebook and Twitter to promote themselves are also seeing their audiences get smaller and smaller. Now, that of course leads to allegations they're being censored, when in reality, let's be honest, a lot of these right-wing sites or these right-wing influencers, they know how to game the algorithm. And they also have a lot of money behind them, which means being able to buy lots and lots of ads to pepper all around. For example, look, Facebook, you're able to buy a lot of ads and to get out to lots and lots of people, artificially increasing your reach so that you can reach new audiences. And well, now they can't really do that anymore. And so, again, if you don't get new eyeballs onto your content, well, I mean, that's not going to be good for your content, for your channel. And it turns out their biggest problem on these new right-wing websites, these social media sites, is that they're not getting new people anymore. Now, the Post analysis had reviewed the audience data for 47 well-known right-wing influencers who went to those news sites last year and found that beyond that first influx, they have barely grown. And in fact, in some cases, dropped. Interesting. So now, first, let me give you the numbers of how much they've actually grown. Now, right after Trump was banned from Twitter and different social media sites for promoting, the big lie and after January 6th, right? Those sites saw an initial growth of about 80%. So now the numbers really matter. And I don't know the exact numbers here, so let's just use a couple of random examples, right? So if you're starting, for example, on this right-wing website, it's fairly new, right? And you've got 10,000 or so active users. 80%, I mean, yes, it's still a gain. All right. And that's good, but not great. Now, if they have 1 million and it's up by 80%, increases by 80%, well, that's fantastic. Then you're doing much, much better. And so I don't know what the situation is, but considering how new a lot of these social media websites are, because they were created basically after Trump was banned, well, then there's not going to be, it's not going to be many people there. And so, yes, if you have 10 people and it decreases by 80%, well, that's not still very many people. So they're not doing very well. Now, that said, I'm sure there's more than 10 people. I'm sure there's probably a couple 100,000 people. All right. That said, the influencers previously had seen steady growth on Twitter and other big platforms that distributed their messages to a broad audience. But after their jump to the niche sites, the analysis indicates they largely failed to continue attracting new followers who weren't already engaged fans. And so what they have done is that they have created an echo chamber for themselves. Now, that's both terrible, actually. It's good in the beginning, maybe, because, oh, look, I've got all these people. But now it's also bad because, well, there's no more new people. And it has become an echo chamber. And so therefore, not only does it increase the rhetoric, I should say the severity of the kind of rhetoric that you see there as it gets more and more extreme, but also you're not getting new people, you're not growing your movement, you're not growing your channel, you're not growing your revenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a death knell, essentially, for whatever social media or channel or influencer you're trying to be. All right, so now, the report also said that right-wing Twitter copies like Gab and Getter and the YouTube twin Rumble have only focused on conservative audiences. Thus, they have struggled to keep growth going for their major users. On Gab, for example, Alex Jones, who joined in 2016 and was banned from mainstream sites in 2018, went from gaining roughly 25,000 followers a month in the first quarter of 2021 to adding about 1,000 followers a month for the rest of the year. Not very good. The analysis also showed that on Rumble, OAN ballooned to 75,000 subscribers after Trump was banned from social media. Since then, however, they've made it to about 900,000. All right, so again, I don't think those are terrible numbers. That said, OAN, it's kind of a huge funded network by AT&T. 90% of its revenue came from AT&T because AT&T wanted to create a conservative network. So they've got all this gigantic corporate money behind them, and they can only get, what, 900,000 people? As opposed to independent lefty channels, for example, and even independent right-wing channels that are on social media, that are in places like YouTube, Facebook. Let me give you some examples. By the way, this is on YouTube, right? So David Pakman, center left, right? I would consider him to be a center left. He's got over 1 million subs. He's doing better than OAN. Secular Talk, a little bit more lefty, 973,000 subs. Majority Report, 1.17 million subs. The Young Turks main channel, over 5 million. But OAN, you think that they would be doing way better when it comes to subs with all of this money behind them. But I guess there's no audience on right-wing websites. And that's the problem here. That's the problem here. And so there is a reason behind all of this. The report cited Darren Linville, a researcher at Clemson University's Media Forensics Hub, who explained that because the news sites are focusing on right-wing rabble-rousers, they developed a brand that they're the gathering spot for the QAnon fringe, anti-vaxxers, and others in the conservative world. So much of social media, he adds, isn't political at all. The biggest platforms are loaded with jokes, pop culture, cute photos, and other distractions that make up most people's daily media appetites. Starting a social media site means building multiple perspectives so you can have lots of different conversations happening to bring in lots of different kinds of people. Right-wing platforms, however, are one-trick ponies. They're only going to, by their nature, appeal to the type of person they are branded to appeal to, and there's only so many people in that world. So now look, I talk about bubbles, right? Well, lefty YouTube, it's a bubble. Definitely. And so, I mean, look, here in the YouTube news and politics vertical, I just, listed some of those channels off, right? But then you go outside of that, and you have channels with 20 million that talk about movies and pop culture and things like that. That's where the users are. And so actually the majority of people on YouTube don't watch news and politics. Don't watch our political shows. Don't watch the verticals. The news and politics vertical. And so what these other right-wing companies are doing wrong is that all they're doing is focusing on just that right there, on just that news and politics vertical. And it's strictly just about all right-wing. And it's, look, what lefty would want to go to those sites anyway? I remember being invited to do videos on locals. That's Dave Rubin's channel or venture, right? And I'm like, the fuck is this? No, I'm not going to, first of all, I'm not going to give my information over to people like Dave Rubin, my personal information, my address, my phone. No, my payment information. Are you kidding? Absolutely not. I don't trust them at all. And so, no, that's one reason a lot of people would likely not want to go sign up for these sites to do content. And the other is, again, who wants to go there and have whatever content they put up just bombarded by constant vitriol? I mean, think about it this way. You think the YouTube comment section is bad. Put up a video on Rumble and just watch everyone, oh, you fucking libtard. You mental brain damage, soy boy, soy jack, cock. Just constantly. And so, yeah, we don't have any interest in that because they don't have any interest in actually having conversations. And so that's a bit of an issue here. All right. And so add on to that really is the fact that a team of researchers last year who analyzed data from R the Donald, a pro-Trump forum banned by Reddit that launched its own standalone site, found that the spinoff had far fewer members. However, the tone of the discussions, this is important, the tone of the discussions had become way more hateful. Turns out if you focus on creating a niche site for extreme right-wingers, you're going to get a niche following full of extreme right-wingers. And they're not going to want to have anyone get into the middle of that bubble. Now, of course, the result, the side effect, I should say, is that you're going to lose out on normal people. Normal people. You lose out on a new audience. And so, now, that said, right-wingers, they're not the only ones that are experiencing this problem. YouTube's actually starting down the path of creating these bubbles as well, but in a bit of a different direction, in a different way. So YouTube, you probably have noticed since like 2017, 2018, YouTube's algorithms steer people towards legacy media content. And by legacy media, I mean CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. So now what they're doing by doing that and not recommending any, lefty channels or any sort of, independent media, whether it be centrist, left or right, whatever, from their perspective, well, you're cutting off that voice and you are creating these echo chambers. And so that sucks. That's not good. You're preventing people from discovering different news and politics programs on their platform and actually reducing the membership. And again, you're creating these self-sustaining bubbles that will continue to dwindle. And so that is a problem. The result is the same. People are not discovering new content. A great example of this is David Dold, Rational National, recently did a video. And he talked about how for the year of 2021, he had 0 net new subscribers. The whole year. His content is not being served up to new people. Instead, people are being driven towards CNN, MSNBC, and yes, Fox News, which, by the way, if they wanted to protect against disinformation, you would think the first target would be Fox News, but no, it's not, because it is legacy media. And so that is a bit of a problem. And when all they're served up is legacy media channels, then why watch YouTube at all? When you could just watch legacy media on TV, on television. So, as I said before, yes, that's why all these right-wing media sites, these knockoffs, will fail. Not enough, normal people or new people to come to your site. And that means no growth, no future.